Friends, the Charlie Kirk Show team here. America's debt bomb has blown past $37 trillion, and it's climbing every second. President Trump is fighting for fair trade and strong borders to slow the train wreck, but the numbers don't lie. When debt grows this fast, it can threaten your savings and your family's future. That's why more Americans are turning to real assets like gold and silver. I work with and recommend Preserve Gold. They make it simple to own physical gold and silver, even inside your retirement accounts like an IRA or 401k. Text USA to 50505 for their free wealth protection guide. With a qualified purchase, you could get up to $20,000 in free gold or silver.
It's become very clear in retrospect that Charlie Kirk was holding the right together, and that we need J.D. Vance to step into that role, which will require settling disputes and laying out the boundaries of the coalition. Nixon figured out how to do this after being vice president. So, and then someone said, you know, Vance should have his own podcast, which we've had him on a few times, and we should hopefully do that again in the future. But yeah, I think that's, for those who aren't aware, who are watching, there's been a lot of discussion of this online, because there's been a lot of arguments within the right over, you know, for example, when Tucker interviewed Nick Fuentes, what are the barriers on the Israel question, on foreign policy questions, on a lot of stuff, what's up for debate, what's not up for debate, what's beyond the pale. And, you know, Charlie was such a coalition builder. He was so interested in keeping the focus on get wins against the left. Charlie would not have been having a big fight over what the right should believe a week before the elections in Virginia and New Jersey. And I think it's very important to emphasize that, and I'm glad you were emphasizing it, Chris.
Yeah, and so, Chris, build on why JD. Why do you see him as uniquely positioned to be that person?
Well, look, I mean, I think, again, in retrospect, I saw it. And, you know, I remember during the transition period, I talked with Charlie, and he called me and he said, hey, I need great names for people to staff the Department of Education. I'm down at Mar-a-Lago. We're trying to pick a great team. And that's the moment that I realized that he was someone that in public had this huge role, but also in private, he was essential in figuring out how to get good people together that were focused on the mission, that were going to deliver results. And I think I didn't quite understand that and appreciate that until after he was gone. And then there's this sense of a void. There's no one that can stitch together the various coalitions into the MAGA movement, into the general right. He was really just an incredible leader in that regard. And as I'm looking around for other people who could fill his shoes and serve in that same capacity, the first person that obviously comes to mind is the sitting vice president of the United States. JD has great relationships with all the various factions on the right. He, of course, has the bully pulpit of being the vice president. That's actually quite helpful to be in a powerful position. And he can really gatekeep in a unique way, kind of offering the access to the White House, offering access to the office of the vice president, and then getting people in line. And look, the right is facing this question now. Obviously, it's very chaotic. Many of us wish that we weren't doing it, for example, right before election. But the cat is now out of the bag, and I think we need to resolve these questions sooner rather than later. And I think the vice president has the authority, the credibility, and more importantly, the relationships to get the job done. I could see why he would want to kind of let things maybe resolve naturally. But I hope that he steps up, and I hope that he can be a galvanizing figure. Hope he can be a figure that really sets the boundaries and also sets the direction so that all of us can be more effective in our work.
Yeah, I want to, let's Charlie was, of course, a big fan of the vice president. Very hard for him to become vice president and senator before that. And so let's go to the man himself. This is Charlie on JD. Let's play 158.
We recognized his gifts early on. I saw the talent and I said, this is the guy. This is the one. J.D. Vance has become such a warrior for our cause in the past 6 months. J.D. Vance is acting and looking like the vice president that Donald Trump needs, the vice president that Donald Trump deserves, and maybe beyond that, even the 48th president. We're a long way from that. We shouldn't even think or talk too much openly about that, but he's a rock star. He's smart, he's capable, he's humble, he's phenomenal. And what an upgrade from what we had during that last administration.
Unclear if he's talking about Joe Biden's or Trump 1.0 there,
yeah.
but it probably would have remained probably true from Charlie's perspective on either. But yeah, I mean, listen, Chris, JD has the built-in advantage of not only being the vice president, but Charlie in death somehow has taken on even more important of a position within the movement, symbolically, spiritually, and of course the words that he spoke out and all these clips we have of him. He was in JD's corner 1,000,000,000%. I can tell you this from the first time we had him on the show years ago when it was just talking about hillbilly elegy.
He'd always say, people would say, like, Charlie, you should run for president. He's like, I don't need to. JD can run for president.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that holds a significance within the conservative movement, that Charlie was such a huge proponent of his.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, again, he really set the example. If you see how Charlie dealt with kind of right-wing racialism, right-wing conspiracism, the Groyper movement more broadly. He was trying to kind of create good boundaries that would benefit, and he understood that sometimes there is addition through subtraction in a political coalition. There are certain groups that you want to manage, and there are certain groups that you want to manage out because ultimately they detract. And the end of my tweet was a reference to Richard Nixon. And if you look at the history of Nixon, Nixon was derailed in his 1962 campaign for California governor by the John Birch Society, which in that time represented a more extreme form of right-wing conspiracism. They, of course, were famous for attacking President Eisenhower as a communist agent. And by the 1968 presidential campaign, which Nixon won, and then in 72, which he won by an overwhelming margin, winning 49 states, he learned how to successfully kind of cut through these thorny questions, how to create a successful coalition that galvanized huge majorities, and also how to edge out some of the kind of negative influences, some of the net negatives, like the John Birch Society. He had this sophisticated strategy of strategic distance without getting sucked into a debate with the Birch Society. And I think that for someone like JD, a similar approach could be quite effective. Look, again, Nixon won 49 states. I think he demonstrated one potential model for this that could be very important. And of course, Nixon was, formerly served as vice president. And so that's why I think the historical example might be useful and might offer a plausible way forward.
Yeah, I think this is the debate. I mean, what you've just isolated is and Buckley played a big role with who was in, who was out. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have sent me the Buckley example going back to those days, and it's a really tricky question.
It is a tricky one because, like, for example, you could say some of Buckley's influence meant that we had like that anti-intervention, anti-immigration faction of the right was too low for too long, and that caused a lot of damage to the movement and the country, arguably.
Yeah, no, I think
you have to get it right.
So, and I will say, and I mean, let's just name names. Let's just do it. And Chris, you can either choose to engage or not. I mean, it's kind of what you're talking about. The strategic. Well, let's not get sucked down to it, but sucked down into this sort of like I would say counterproductive infighting. And I agree with you that there are opportunities where we need to sort of say, hey, this is a line too far, it's a bridge too far. But a lot of people. We've said it on Thought Crime. I think we've said it on this show as well. A lot of people are asking us to distance ourselves from Tucker, given everything that's happened. And I would say, listen, one of the last things that we were asked to do, or that Charlie made very clear to us, was that I will not be morally blackmailed when it comes to Tucker Carlson. He's my friend. I believe in him. And listen, we have I understand a lot of the pressure that comes with the fallout from that interview. I understand a lot of it, but there is a relationship there. There is a history there with Charlie and Tucker, and so just to say it really clearly, that's not going to happen. Now, debates, the collision of ideas at AmFest. Trust me, we're pursuing every single means, and I think it's a worthwhile debate to be having about what is our foreign policy, what should it be with regards to how much we spend on foreign nations. What, is there a line between moral and financial support? Is there a line between boots on the ground? Certainly, I think the movement is consolidated and I would say very united when it comes to boots on the ground. But there are really important conversations that deserve to be challenged in a public forum from different perspectives.